What is up, guys? Welcome to episode number 165 of Beef's Beef. I'm going to do something I haven't done for a little bit, and I'm going to record part of this podcast solo. Um, but I also do have an interview for you guys later on. But before I get to any of that, I got to talk about my three sponsors. First sponsor, Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage. Hit Crystal up for any mortgage, home loan needs, anything, refinancing, anything that comes to the home buying or refinancing process. Hit up my friend Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage. You can get in touch with her at 502-615-0743. Again, it's 502-615-0743. Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage. Stockton Mortgage is an equal housing lender, MLS number 8259. Crystal Lackey, MLS number 1735979. Next, Delium. Boom. Got the shirt. My guy Isaac over at Delium. It's spelled Bdelliom. You can find them on Facebook, Delium Clothing, on Instagram at Delium Clothing. Delium is men's and women's minimalistic brand that focuses on modern aesthetic and quality. Everything comes pre-shrunk. You guys heard Isaac talk on here a few weeks ago. You guys know what he's all about. Hit him up. His men's stuff is at Him's Gentleman Boutique in downtown New Albany. Again, it's Delium Clothing on Facebook, at Delium Clothing on Instagram. Just get with him. Find some stuff. Go down there. If you're a guy, go down and get some stuff. And like I said, it comes pre-shrunk, so you don't have to worry about it shrinking on you if you put it in the dryer. And last but certainly not least, Mike and Cheese. Mike and Cheese is literally, and I'm not just saying this because he's like my brother, Mike and Cheese is literally the best mac and cheese there is in town. Free delivery to the Louisville and Southern Indiana, $15 minimum. All trays start at $10. Give them a call at 502-548-6845. Try the Beef's Beef Pizza Mac. Make sure you tell him I sent you. Look on Facebook for Instagram. I think he's mostly just on Facebook. Look on Facebook for updates. He'll tell you where he's at. Like I said, he will deliver. Just get in touch with him, 502-548-6845. And again, I told you guys that I'm doing a solo episode, but I do have an interview to sneak in at the end with you guys. I'm not really sneaking it in because it's a pretty long interview, but it's with a guy that's running a nonprofit in the West End of Louisville. His name is Wes Hinton. I'm very excited for you guys to hear the interview. But like I said, I'll introduce that at the end of the episode. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the sports world right now that, I haven't been on here to talk about. There's the NBA Finals going on, the name, image, likeness stuff in the NCAA coming about like a whirlwind. It really just hit, boom. It was set in stone the next week. So just a few of the things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to obviously talk about the NBA Finals. Game 1 was yesterday. I'm going to talk about the name, image, likeness stuff with the NCAA and some stuff that's come with that, and give my thoughts on that, as well as just a few basketball recruiting tidbits for Louisville. But we'll start with the NBA Finals. So last night was Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Phoenix Suns hosted the Milwaukee Bucks. They won Game 1 behind a big game from Chris Paul. I believe it was 118-105. I'll have to look it up to be sure. I hate looking up on my phone while I'm doing it because I should have done this before. But yes, it was 118-105. Chris Paul, like I said, had a big game. 32 points, 9 assists, 12 of 19 from the field, 4 of 7 from the three-point line. And DeAndre Ayton added 22 and 19 as well. It's amazing. Those of you that know me and those of you that maybe don't even know me but just follow the podcast or see me on social media know that I'm not a fan of Chris Paul. I can't stand the guy. I think he's very dirty. But one thing I'll never say is he's not good. I think some people take it whenever I say that I don't like a player that I just automatically think that they're not good. There's only one player that I feel that way about, and that's Draymond Green. I think Draymond Green's the most overrated player in the NBA, but that's a story for a different time. So Giannis comes back after a week absence after a hyperextension in his knee, which most of the time I was listening to The Drive with former guest Mark Ennis the other day, and he had a trainer on there who said that most times most of the time, guys that are people that go out with a hyperextension, they mention 10 to 12 days at least. Um, so either that they did come out a few days after it happened and said there was no real structural damage as far as it goes for Giannis's knee, which is a very great thing because you never want to see a guy like that ever really go through anything. I don't want my worst enemy to go through a torn ACL or anything like that. And that was exactly where my mind went. I think where everyone's mind went whenever you saw what happened. Um, his knee just buckled like that. It was not a good look. So when you heard, the next day that there was no structural damage, that was fantastic to hear. And then to hear that it was a hyperextension and there was a chance that he could be back, you had to know that he was going to be back for the finals. Because if you hear, back to back MVPs, but can't get it done in the playoffs, he can't, there's no way. It doesn't matter how hurt he is. If he's able to play at all and he didn't play, his legacy is going to be killed, and I think it's very unfair. Um, but you guys know just as well as I know that if he didn't play, that his legacy was going to be tarnished, and I hate to hear that because the improvements that he's shown in the what 6 7 years he's been in the league. Um, Because I believe, yeah, I think he's 25 right now, and he came in when he was 18. So 6 7 years he's been in the league has been astronomical. When he came into the league, he was a virtual unknown. Uh, has put on probably 60 pounds of muscle at least. It's just a specimen, and with a very mediocre jump shot, and that's being nice. Is still back to back MVP and is still putting up 30 and 12 and 6 assists, and you need that guy on your team. Obviously, that goes without saying, but having him back is humongous. And he played 35 minutes last night, which is very surprising with the guy coming off a hyperextension, uh, come back and play that many minutes. Uh, but they still couldn't get it done. To me, just looking at the stats from top to bottom, the biggest difference to me, two things. One, just Chris Paul's penetration of the other defense. Um, I know I was listening to the radio because I played an open gym yesterday, and one of the bigger things that John Barry said on the radio was the difference in the difficulty of shot that the Bucks were getting compared to Phoenix. Chris Paul is a maestro when it comes to divvying up your defense and then either hitting that fadeaway mid-range jumper or throwing the lob to DeAndre Ayton. And I can't tell you how many times he did that last night. I mean, like I said, he had 9 assists, 12 of 19 from the field, 32 points. So, and he's also, like I said, 4 of 7 from the 3-point line. So the guy just absolutely chopped through Milwaukee's defense. To me, Drew Holiday, who's known as a fantastic defender, has got to step up. Giannis dropped 20 and 17. Chris Middleton had 29 points, but he also had 5 turnovers. So a guy that's predominantly handling the ball or having the ball in his hands, you can't turn the ball over that much. But to me, the big differences, free throw differences, the Phoenix Suns shot 25 for 26 from the free throw line. They made 9 more free throws than what the Bucks took. So to me, the two big differences, Milwaukee's got to clean up their fouling. And I don't think the foul differential was that big, but when you're fouling guys going to the rim or you're fouling guys in the lane, and you have a team that's shooting 25 for 26 from the free throw line, that's going to kill you in the end. You're not going to win many games when a team shoots that way on the other end. So, um, you ask me, I said before the series, and I still feel after this, um, give me the Bucks in 7. Um, Milwaukee's got a lot of things to clean up from last night. You had a decent game from a couple other guys, and that's what I'm saying. You got to clean it up. The turnovers, I think they had 14 turnovers, but Chris Middleton with 5 turnovers is not going to do it. You can't be a Robin and turn the ball over 5 times and expect your team to win in the NBA Finals. It's not going to happen, especially with how Phoenix is playing. So, but moving away from that, like I said, I'll take the Bucks in 7. That's what I've said from the beginning of the finals. Was the Bucks in 7, and that's what I'm gonna stick with. Especially now with Giannis back and him playing 35 minutes and him looking virtually okay. I would want him to shoot the ball a little bit more. I didn't feel like he shot the ball enough. Um, I think he only took like maybe 12 shots. which when you see him with 20 points and only taking 12 shots, that's fantastic, a fantastic percentage. But you're one of the best players in the NBA, top 5 player in the league. I'm gonna need you to shoot more than 12 times. So, but moving away from that, I spoke on just now the name, image, likeness uh, stuff coming in with the NCAA, and it went into effect July 1st, which was what, last Thursday, and immediately on Twitter you're starting seeing stuff from guys like Sam Williamson, who's eating at Royals and talking about the chicken sandwich at Royals. You got L. Ellis announcing that he signed with an agency. Um, a lot of U of L men's, women's, everything signed with different things. Jordan Watkins signed with multiple things. Um, so I'm going to give my opinion. I'm glad this is finally happening. To me, athletes in college should have been getting paid a long time ago. The fact that a musician can go out and sell one of their albums, an artist can go out and sell one of their pictures, but you're telling me that an athlete can't sell his autograph, can't sell a jersey of his, can't. I mean, if what happens if they get a piece of jewelry? We'll go back to the Ohio State thing where those guys were trading their bowl rings for tattoos and stuff, jerseys for tattoos. I don't. To me, why is that against? Why would that be against anything that belongs to them? They're trading something for something else. If I'm a fan of a team and you're telling me that I can get a player's bowl ring to put up behind me, like on a shelf like this, and because he doesn't want it, heck yeah, give me that if I can get that for cheap, or do something for him to get that from him. Absolutely. And the fact that they couldn't do that until this name, image, like this stuff went into effect virtually a week ago is mind boggling. You have a booster down in Miami um, who is giving every football player $6,000 to give back and to endorse his gym. That's insane. That is insane. 500. I think it's $500 a month for 12 months for every player on the football team. And to me, that is fantastic because now that gives every guy a chance to do it. You're not having the quote unquote arguments, which people were acting like it was going to be a problem. Do you see that problem in the NBA when guys like, let's take a look, Russell Westbrook sponsored by Jordan, while Bradley Beal, I guess that's a bad example because Bradley Beal, I think, is with Nike. But you have another guy that maybe doesn't have a shoe sponsorship or is sponsored by Adidas, and you know Russell Westbrook's getting all this stuff, or something like that. The jealousy is going to be everywhere anyway. And if that's your biggest excuse for something like that, that's a joke. And I'm glad that this stuff, it was kind of the Supreme Court kind of just didn't give the NCAA a choice. They were like, look, this is no, we're not going against what they're suing for. We're letting it happen. And there's nothing you guys just need to go ahead and say, okay, this is going to happen. And this is when it's going to go into effect because we're letting it happen. And I'm glad it finally did. And I think it's for the best. And speaking on Louisville stuff, I got to shout out 19.9, another free shirt here. I told you guys last episode with BJ, they sent me some free shirts. Got the retro 86 championship Louisville shirt. Go to 199.com. Get on there. They got some Louisville stuff. They got other colleges on there as well. Um, they're officially licensed, so everything's going to use the real Louisville logo. I have a pair of the white shorts that um, I rock to open gyms. I just got a pair of practice shorts as well that I've worn to the gym and to the open gym, and I get compliments on it all the time. So uh, people are like, "Well, where'd you get that? I haven't seen those. Like, where'd you get that shirt from? I haven't seen that yet." I'm the only person that I know of that has this Louisville gear from there. But now that I keep telling people, I know that people are going to go get it. But again, 199.com. It's the number 19 and then the word 9.com. Go there. They got some dope stuff. Um, but my last thing I'll be talking about is the recruiting for basketball. The basketball team has 2 scholarships left. Um, and there was a guy that was brought up, I guess it was about 2 or 3 days ago, that I never expected Louisville to be involved with. And not only is Louisville involved with him, but they were listed in his uh, by a source in his Final Four. And not only that, as like a co-favorite with Texas. Um, so Marcus Carr, the point guard, or the combo guard from Minnesota, averaged 19 points, about 5 assists a game last year for Minnesota. Do it all guy. Really carried them through a lot of victories. I watched him uh, power them through a win over Iowa early in the season, which you guys know I wasn't really big on Iowa anyway. But um, he's a fantastic guard. He was my favorite person that I saw go in the portal when he went into the portal. Um, he's he he he's a fantastic player, can do it all, can pass, can shoot it from the outside, can get to the rim, and was listed in his final four. His final four was Louisville, I believe it was Louisville, Kentucky, Texas, and I think maybe Kansas. Kansas's backcourt is load is chock full of guys. Kentucky's backcourt is chock full of guys. So really, it's down to Texas and Louisville, and I'm hoping, we can make a big push for Marcus Carr and, get him in a Carter uniform, because if we can get him and then the next guy that I'm going to talk about, Sidney Curry, 6'8" power forward from John A. Logan College, um, which you may know, Day Davis Sloan that I had on here, played there. Jay Scrubb also played there, that plays for the Clippers, that was committed to Louisville. He's just a powerhouse. It looks like he'll remind you. He doesn't jump as high, but he reminds you of Montrez with how he dunks the ball, just always hammering everything. Um, the only thing that I would like to see him improve on is his free throw shooting. He shot in the 40s on his free throw percentage. But there's 2 scholarships left from what I hear. Mac wasn't looking to use them, but I guarantee you, if those two, I won't guarantee you anything, but if those 2 guys said we want to commit today, he's using those scholarships. He'd be crazy not to use the scholarships on those 2 guys, because if you put those 2 guys on this team with the team they already have, which I feel like already is a top 25 team, which people may say, okay, Beef, you're just being biased because you're a Louisville fan, which may be true. But if you put Marcus Carr and Sidney Curry on this team with Malik Williams coming back, L. Ellis on this team, Sam Williamson, with how he finished the season, a year older JJ Trainer, you bring in Mike James, you bring in Jared West, you bring in Noah Locke, you bring in all those guys, you bring in Matt Cross. Um, to me, this is a top 25 team. You add those 2 guys, they're a fringe top 15, top 10 team. And I already like this team anyway, like I said. But if you add those 2 guys, I'm looking second, third weekend type team, if everything meshes and we stay healthy. Again, that's staying healthy with guys like Malik Williams, which, Chris Mack came out and said that the injury at the end of the year was his opposite foot, so it wasn't anything that we really needed to worry about. It was just something they needed to clean up and wanted to, make sure everything was good. Um, but if we can stay healthy, I really think that Louisville can make a good push, especially if they get these 2 guys. So be looking out, Marcus Carr. I don't know when he's planning to announce, uh, but Sidney Curry did already visit Louisville. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. I haven't really heard any more on that front as far as that goes. But if we can lock those 2 guys in, Louisville's going to have a very, very solid team. But that's really all that I got as far as, a solo episode today. I know it wasn't really that much, but hopefully that'll um, feed your taste buds there for something that I'm going to start doing a little bit more often before some of these interviews, especially some of the shorter interviews. But like I said, I have an interview for you guys today. His name's Wes Hinton. He runs the Delta Foundation in the West End of Portland, on Portland Avenue, actually, in my old high school. But I don't want to say too much, because he gives you the breakdown of everything they do and everything they got going on down there. So without further ado, Mr. Wes Hinton. All right, guys, I'm here with Wes, man. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So, some of you'll got a lot of you guys will get to know Wes's story here. I actually got in contact with him through a former guest and person I used to coach with, Richard Gatewood. I don't know if you knew that, but that's how I got your number and everything. That's Richard's my guy.
Yeah, his kids were with me today at summer camp.
Nice. Yeah, he just got back from Florida. Like, it felt like hours ago. That dude was in Florida for like 15 days.
They were in the gym this morning.
It doesn't surprise me, man. I've been around those kids. Those kids are full of energy, man. And they can play though.
Yeah, they can, definitely.
So So let's get started. Like, what did you do? Because we're going to talk about what's called the Delta Foundation. But what did you do before the Delta Foundation?
I started off, I was an average athlete growing up. I played everything, but wasn't great at much. I actually got cut in basketball my senior year at Fern Creek High School. But I knew sports was going to be a part of my life one way or another. So I almost immediately got into coaching, starting at DeSales, coaching JV when I was 20 years old. That led me into substitute teaching. At that point, pretty much anybody that was a head coach was also a teacher. I kind of wish it was still like that. It's not always, but that led me really to just kind of see what do I want to teach. And I was a social or a history major at first, and about 2 years in, I found out that PE and health teachers make the same as history, math, English, and I was like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and do, be a PE and health teacher. So I got my master's from UofL. And then after the sales, I actually went to Fern Creek, my alma mater, and coached there for 6 years. But I was at JCPS teaching for 10. I was at Myers Middle School for 8. And the state actually shut it down. And I'll explain later. That's one of the things that led to Delta. And then I was at Newburgh for 1. And then, most recently I was at St. James in the Highlands. I had to get a part-time really when I was trying to get Delta to take off. So, I mean, I'm a teacher and a coach. I also have a scouting background. I was a director of scouting for Next Up Recruits for a few years. We did some great things, helped a ton of kids get scholarships. That was always, basketball was always a huge part of my life, always.
So Next Up Recruits, I remember hearing a lot about that and seeing your all's posts everywhere. Who was that? Just a solo thing that you started yourself, or?
No, a guy named Taylor Hicks started it, and he was from the Lexington area, and he was kind of having trouble getting Louisville kids to come to camp and play in our jamborees and stuff. And he knew coaching down here that I knew the majority of the adults involved and a lot of the kids. So, he reached out to me about partnering up, and when I did, for a good while, it was a good state. It was like a state takeover, really. We were a full scouting service. The unsigned senior camp that I ran for Next Up Recruits, we had over 120 kids sign scholarships in 4 years. So really, it was a great run, and that kind of led me out of coaching. Just it was kind of tough to do both, to be honest. Just to be unbiased. As
Yeah.
a scout, it's tough to coach also.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So I'm guessing you had a lot of kids that were on your teams that was kind of like like you said, try to be unbiased when you're scouting these kids. I mean, I'm trying to think. I remember seeing Richard help coach at that. I'm also friends with Matt Turner. I think he helps you coach those camps too.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So I mean, how long did the Next Up Recruits go on for?
Um, I guess a year and a half. I think 6 years total. When I came in, I was there for about 4.5. And some things came up, and it just didn't work out. There's talks of bringing it back, and to be honest, the state misses the resource. I still help a kid. I actually partnered with Deadstock Visual to do an unsigned senior camp this year, just because so many people they missed the resource. So potentially in the future, I'm real busy with Delta, but in the future, I'd like to get it back going, just because we do have a ton of kids that don't get the exposure they deserve. We don't have the best talent, but we got a lot of kids that can play at some level, NAIA, D2, D3, junior college.
So let's go to the Delta Foundation, which is why I have you on here. So explain to people what exactly the Delta Foundation is, and are you the sole founder of the Delta Foundation?
Yes, I'm the sole founder of it. Delta stands for Developing Educated Leaders Through Athletics. And really, it's kind of twofold what made me start it. One, I worked at Myers Middle School, like I said, it's like the only school in Louisville that the state shut down in quite some time. Test scores low, lots of problems, 100% free lunch. We had a lot of issues. And I had amazing athletes. Like I'm telling you, I'm PE. Some of them panned out, some of them didn't. But my PE classes would look like a high school practice. And it didn't matter what we played, from wiffle ball to basketball to flag football. It was amazing. But I mean, even while in middle school, I began having kids get shot, kids that, started doing some serious time, even charged as adult crimes. We pretty much had the whole Victory Park, California Park area in Louisville. So we had a lot of inner rivalries there. And I just really started to think, man, like all these kids have one thing in common: they play sports. And if I can find a way to use sports as a tool to get them throughout school, get them a high school diploma, keep them off the streets, and they don't even know what I'm doing. I'm using it as a hook, And between that and then really the other part was the first year we did the Next Up Recruits Unsigned Senior Showcase. You got to put together a coach's packet. And in the packet, it's got the kid's size, 6'4", 170. It's got their stats. And then in the very back, it's got their ACT score and their GPA. And I started seeing so many of my kids from Louisville with 13s, 12s, 14s on the ACT. And I'm like, man, somebody's got to do something about this. We really missed the boat. And I ended up making a lot of relationships with junior colleges just because our kids couldn't get in any other school. So those two things led me to start Delta in 2018.
So you were talking about Myers, and where did you say Myers was exactly located before they closed it down?
It's off Hikes Lane in Louisville.
Okay. So how tough was that to be in PE classes? And you said you had sometimes rival neighborhoods. I mean, was that something that you would have trouble with sometimes in classes and stuff?
I'm a firm believer that if you set the tone, kids are kids, and the respect factor is going to be there if you respect them for who they are. Having PE, I didn't have as much time as most, but I would not have wanted to do math or English or anything like that. When they left that gym, it was almost a different place. We were almost like a safe haven down there. But, some of the people that went there, Devontae Parker, quite a few very good athletes that went on to the next level. But the school just deteriorated, and then people leave, go to private school, go to different places. But like it'll always have a special place in my heart. I would have stayed there forever. And like one thing is, I know we can like recruiting's not supposed to be hush hush, but I mean, almost every high school coach in the city made a stop by Myers at some point, to get an athlete. And some panned out, but many didn't. But it led me to believe that my calling was to do a little bit more than just teach PE and health.
Well, I'll go ahead and spill the beans for everybody else. If you think that there's not high school recruiting in the city, then you just don't know high school basketball. That's a 100% fact. Do you think these kids end up at certain schools just because they're in that area? Yeah, you got another thing coming, because there's kids that live all the way across the city. They go to schools way out in the East End. So yeah,
I'll tell you what, when they started middle school football, that was one of my last years there because it always been just little league, and man, they're even more aggressive than basketball, and football coaches were lined up across the fence at practice.
That's surprising to hear, man, because basketball was cutthroat, man.
Yeah.
It was. So for those of you that don't know, Delta is located in the West End neighborhood of Portland. It's at on Portland Avenue. It's actually where I went to high school, which is another reason why I wanted to have you on here to talk about it. What made you choose that location, and like how did you find it? Like how did you like luck into that building? Because I know that the building had been vacant for a little bit, then it got bought, then it got foreclosed on, and then after that I knew it was just vacant again.
Yeah. So really we started off Delta working with Shawnee and Western high schools basketball teams. I had a friend coaching at each school, and we brought it in kind of to them, like, we'll help get your players tutoring, ACT prep, mentors, bring in guest speakers, keep up with their grades and behavior. It's tough enough to teach and coach at those schools that, we were able to come in and provide a resource. So I started getting some investors that really believed in what we were doing. But my main investor kept telling me that, until you get this thing is going to take off, but you need brick and mortar around you. So I started kind of looking immediately at some of the foreclosed Catholic schools, St. Denis. There was one over off Taylor Boulevard. I forget the name of it, but we almost ended up there. And I had done a camp. So Portland Christian had the building, then they sold it to somebody. And when that person was doing it, myself and Coach Schuler at Fern Creek had done a camp down there. And it was completely free. It was a give back. It was actually a Christmas camp. We donated like 100 hams to the community. It was great, but the gym was in awful condition. I mean, It was the floor had all these spots, dead spots from just not, and nobody took care of it. There'd been no heating and AC. It was dank, dim, dark, everything. So really, it came full circle. I kind of checked back up on the place and found out that while Portland Christian had no intention of selling the building at that time, that they were willing to lease the gym to help with bills. So when we came in there that first summer, you know, I knew I got in there in May of 2019, and I was like, man, we got to do a summer camp. And we had 75 kids the first day of camp, no air conditioning, the building,
Oh
packed
yeah.
building.
Summer league was hell when I
It
was
was
there, man.
and so like it really was like, this is the spot, this is a spot so central to everything. It's right off 22nd, and I was at first there was a little hesitancy, but then it was kind of like, how do we put money in this place? And I found somebody. Our first thing we did was, because we're education based before basketball, is we got some computers, put them upstairs where they got the classrooms. We built our classrooms first. Next thing we had to do was find a way to get heating and AC. And I mean, people that walk in that gym now are like, oh my God. Like, they just think it's a crazy thing. We put a brand new floor in it recently. And that was through money we had raised through various leagues we had done down at the gym. But really, it became a whole new place. And Portland Christian ended up selling it to Gil Holland, the developer that owns quite a few businesses and things in Portland. And we signed a 3-year lease. So, we're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. It's home. The amount of people that, interact through the day, that just come and holler at us in the neighborhood or whatever, it's really been a breath of fresh air. Like, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else now.
So you mentioned like the floor, because I remember playing open gyms there, and there was the welt in front of the floor in the hallway that was
Uh,
probably 2 feet off the ground.
yes,
And then
sir.
the dead spot that was always in front of the door, that was there from the time I was in elementary school. They fixed it, but people would just go in and out that door, and it
Yep.
just weather would just completely get on the floor, and it ruined that spot over there. So other than just the floor, what were some of the other difficulties that you had moving into that building, or were there any?
I mean, like, they shut us down 4 or 5 times the first summer just because of heat, and told us we had to shut down our summer program at noon because it was so hot.
Yeah.
That leaks, plumbing. I mean, it was really one thing after another. And we were kind of on our own, but we kind of took on that lease as an as is thing. If it was a major emergency, Portland Christian would take care of it. But it really gave us kind of a just independence, like a sense of independence. Like, no, we got to handle this. I'm blessed to know a lot of people in trades and things like that were able to donate their time. But, I mean, it's one of them things that I always tell people this about Delta. Like, the people that come down there that volunteer, they always come back. The people that worked 2 years ago at summer camp, they're older, they're still there. And like, it's just got a special vibe about it that people can't get away from the place. And like, one thing that was big is, no knock on Portland Christian, but I know you had talked about this, is I had to get all that green out of
Oh yeah.
there.
Oh
And
yeah.
I had to get, Delta Foundation on the floor and everything else. And we call the building the Creation Center. And so, it's Delta Foundation at the Creation Center. And I wanted, to put Creation Center on the front with Delta. And just really, like, to me, us getting that floor done and getting our logo on there and making sure it wasn't slick like crazy anymore and all
Yeah.
that, like, I think that let people know, like, we're here to stay.
So how much of the building do you own? Do you guys just own the gym in the
So we got
upstairs from the gym, or do you own the hallway, or?
no, we got the gym. We got the 3 classrooms up top, and obviously the kitchen that's in the gym, and then the back is actually a wood shop. So they're in the back. They were there even before me. For the longest, it was just us two. And then actually, it's really cool what they're doing in the school building. So the school building was even more of a dump than a gym because it just sat
Yeah.
there. So it's pretty much all nonprofits that work with kids, and they're selling the classrooms or renting the classrooms at a reasonable rate. There's people in there that do art with kids, theater. I think they said there's gonna be somebody doing martial arts. But I mean, it's almost like we got our own little hub to where we sat back there for 2 years by ourselves. You know, the people from the church would be there on Sunday, but other than that, we never saw nobody. To where now it's like a bunch of like-minded people. So, you know, I'm really like happy with where the building, besides the gym, you know, is headed.
Well, it's funny you keep saying those are classrooms upstairs. That was our locker rooms. The one as soon as you
So,
go up to the left where you
yeah,
guys are normally at, that was our men's locker room,
I
all
remember
the way
Rick
to the
telling me that. Yeah.
yeah, and then his office, Rick's office was actually the first door on the right, and then at the very end was the girls' locker room.
Yep, yep, that's what he told me. Yep. So, and that middle office is where my office is now. So, you know, I know he had the one little AC unit up there, and the rest
Yeah,
of the place was storage.
yeah. So, I know you guys. I've read some stuff on Twitter from you and other things. What are some of the after school things that you guys do? Because I've seen some of this stuff, but or not just maybe after school stuff, but what is everything that you guys do?
So really, we got four core programs. You know, and obviously COVID, we were able to manage through COVID a little bit. So we hosted the kids for in the area for NTI online school throughout the school year. But our first year was in our mission was as an after school program called Hoops and Homework. You know, we're a partner with Metro United Way, so we're actually able to access our kids' grades, attendance, behavior, all of that. So Hoops and Homework, you know, is a mentorship program where them kids come in, you know, they got to do their homework. If not, they're in like a book group of people that read at a similar level. But regardless, they're typically upstairs for about 45 minutes a day. Then after that, they get their basketball skill work, and towards the end, they get games, things like that. So hoops and homework will be back in August. You know, majority of kids that attend are from West Louisville. We average probably, well, pre-COVID, about 35 a day, which when you're talking about, we're a little different than community centers. Like we work with our kids' teachers, their counselors, everything. Like we're an open book with everybody, and most of our kids' schools are too. So like 80 kids isn't going to work. You know, it's not what the mission is. So hoops and homework, our summer program right now, is this year we partnered with the Summer Backpack League. In the past, it was called Books and Basketball. So this year, really, the focus in the mornings is to get these kids back after having missed a whole year of school, working on fundamental math, language arts, reading, that sort of thing. You know, and they in the afternoons they get the basketball side of it. So every year we do a summer program, and then we do an ACT prep, which we weren't able to do pre-COVID or during COVID. But the first year we did it, we actually had 13 varsity basketball programs in Louisville, brought their whole senior class and some juniors down and got free ACT prep. We had some great success stories. We had a kid that recently signed D1, that jumped like 6 points, you know.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm not going to act like that everybody jumped 6 points, but we had a great success. It allowed the coaches to kind of bond, you know, and I think most of the coaches trust me. So like when we did that, really that was a game changer. So I'm excited to do that again. And then our newest program is also called Books and Basketball, and it's an individual tutoring program on Tuesday nights. So I kind of based it off Everyone Reads, which JCPS used to do. They probably still do, and then added the sports element. And we get volunteers from the community. Oftentimes, coaches will bring their team down for service hours, and the kids go in and they spread out, use the gym, the stage, the classrooms, and they get one-on-one reading and literacy tutoring, whether that's books or on the iPad for 30 minutes. And then after that, they get 45 minutes of basketball skill work, all free of charge. It's been a great response. You know, we averaged about 24 kids, about 30 volunteers. And we'll get started again in that once summer camp's over. So that's called Books and Basketball. But really, reading and literacy is the issue. You know, it leads to so much. I mean, these kids just really struggle with the basics of that. And we look at it from a point of view with there's little you can do in life without being able to read. And we try to stress that to them. That's not to knock any subject or anything, but our focus down here first and foremost academically will be reading and literacy.
So having mostly kids from the West End and having them at that time after school, I mean, is there like a meal program you guys do? Since I know you say you're partnering with the United Way, like, is there something you guys do as far as meals as well for these kids, or
Yeah,
what do you
Dare to
guys do?
Care. So we get Dare to Care. They'll feed the kids dinner. So about 5 o'clock, if they're still there, then the kids will have dinner. Right now, they're feeding us lunch at during the summer program. But Dare to Care is a very good partner of us. We were also blessed to go in with a group on what was called the Farm to Family Grant during COVID, and we were able to get 24,000 food boxes of good stuff, chicken, meatballs, potatoes, out in the month of October throughout the West End, Shively, Newburgh. So what that led to more relationships of food places besides Dare to Care that will donate fruit and things of that nature. So that's always, not only is your normal kid that doesn't have the hardships of some of ours always starving when they get home from school,
Yeah,
but some of our kids, we don't know if they've ate.
yeah.
So it's real important. That was something that when we started, we realized real quick how important that part of it was going to be.
So you spoke on the ACT prep and stuff. Like, do you guys bring in professors or teachers or something to do that?
So yeah, go ahead.
And if you do, like, how do you get the funding for that? Is that part of the like you were saying, the United Way? Did they kind of fund that because you said you were partnered with them and everything?
Yeah, so I'm only partnered with them on the after school program, but it was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, because we kept moving during COVID. As soon as Bashir said you can have 10 kids, we had 10 kids, to where a lot of nonprofits just either offered their stuff only virtually or whatever. We were like, man, we don't have a virtual type of clientele in our, like, these kids want to be in here and they need to be in here. They need us. So that led to some grants. So people are starting to see results. We're really data driven. We can show you how kids have improved, attendance, everything like that. So we have been blessed to have some grants. Obviously, the gym is full anytime we're not in there, whether it's practice or we host quite a few games as well. So that helps with expenses. But with the ACT, there's a guy that actually was the head academic advisor at UC when Kenyon Martin and under Huggins, when Huggins was there. So he's experienced, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
he could do the thing. So anyway, he owns a company called Devonshire Productions out of Cincinnati, and I actually met him through a mutual friend, and we brought him down the first 2 times. And part of us paying him was, I got a guy that wants to do this. His name's Gary McCauley, teaches at Valley High School. And I said, part of what I'm paying you, I want you to train him because, ultimately I want him to be able to do it. So, the first 2 times we did that, but now Gary's fully comfortable doing it on his own. So we're really kind of all about like empowering people, everybody that kind of works at Delta, even if it's a volunteer basis. I try to tell them, like, whatever you do, if it's make shirts or Gary with the ACT prep, you can do that here. This place is big enough. There's plenty of time. If it's a like-minded mission, I'm empowering you that you don't even got to worry about looking for space to do something. Like, no, we have a room upstairs that we rarely use, like talk to me and we can figure stuff out.
Yeah, I saw that actually. A friend of the podcast there, Javen Reeves, actually helped you guys recently. He
Yeah.
has Javen's one of my good friends. I've had him on the podcast multiple times, and it was funny. He posted a picture of him reading with a kid on the bleachers, and I
Yeah.
and I texted him. I said, "Is that at Portland Christian's old gym?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "How did you know that?" I said, "That's where I went, man. I'll always recognize that gym."
Yeah, and it's funny because Taylor Bradley, who's one of my employees, she ran track at UofL, so she brought him, and he came, and then he came again, and then I guess he had Olympic trials or
Yeah,
wherever he was going. It might have been before Olympic trials, and I was like, oh, we won't see him again. As soon as they were over, he was back again. So like,
I love that kid, man. He's such a good guy.
awesome. Yeah, he's a keeper. So I mean, that's part of it, and I do utilize a lot of the kids that I helped, at the Unsung Senior with Next Up Recruits. I helped get a scholarship. I don't hold it over their head, But, I do reach out and say, hey, man, I could use some help. And most of the time they're very accommodating because they know that I took the time to help them, So it's never going to work if it's just receive, 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 And that's why, like, we have our kids pre-COVID, we'll do it again started in August, but we had our kids in the after school program do bi-monthly community outreach, go to the soup kitchen, serve food, go to Landon Park, clean up, that sort of stuff. Because if everything we're providing you is free, you got to see the value in that and realize how important it is that eventually one day, hopefully, you're able to do the same for the youth.
And what's crazy, man, is like I said, I grew up in a Portland neighborhood. I left there when I was about 12 or 13. But the where Gil Holland's office is now is at the old Boys and Girls Club across the street.
Yeah.
So they used to have that. That's no longer there. I don't know how utilized the rec center is anymore on Montgomery Street. So I mean, this kind of gives them another place for that, and by the stuff that you're doing, it's way better than that. Because we used to go practice at the rec center sometimes. So you got to think, when we were at Portland, that was the only gym we had.
Right. Well,
So
I would say this. So Gil Holland's building. So Coach James Schuler at Fern Creek, during COVID, I kind of took him and a couple trainers in, and they had nowhere to go, especially if they were a high school coach. So, that really led to me introducing him over there. And he's got the gym over there looking really good right across the street. So it's almost like sometimes, like when we do a camp, for instance, today I had too many kids and I walked 10 over there to that gym. So really, like, that's another big thing is, like, if you go around the block, if you just turn left on Bank, there's so many different nonprofits of different types that are there. And I think it's great to see a place like where it's needed, not just like some nonprofit out Westport Road, but they do their work in the West End. Why not be right there?
yeah. Now you being down there, have you tried Annie's Pizza yet?
Oh, too many times.
That's I promise to God, man. I don't care how many. That's still my favorite pizza from growing up down there.
I love it. I get the Stromboli now, but that's one thing that we try. Like, if our kids have a pizza party last day of camp or finish books and basketball, man, we go to Annie's. We're always going to support local businesses because we were starting to get quite a few restaurants around us during COVID, and then they just shut the doors, man. It really hit that area hard. So, Annie's is kind of the one last local spot that that we got. So we fully support them.
Yeah, is that Farm to Fork still open over there in the old firehouse, or did they close down?
They closed down. There was that coffee shop behind us. They closed down. There was another restaurant about a block down by Shaheen's across the street behind the hardware store. They closed down. So I mean, yeah, it's really it's limited. I'd like to see it get back, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
So you spoke just a minute ago. You spoke about how during COVID, you could only have 10 kids at a time at certain times. How did you decide which kids you were going to keep? Did you just do it on like a rotation basis, or how did you decide?
I really reached out to the parents and gave them first come, first serve, and typically our kids that more aggressively need services. Now, I'm not going to say a few instances where I know that the kid really needs it, but mom might not reach out or respond to an email or a text. I'm not gonna say we didn't do over the top to get them kids, but with the one that it was actually pretty cool how we did it is we were like, normally our summer program has around 50 kids. So like, how do we get as many? So I just went like ages 8 to 11 go from 9 to noon, and then ages 12 to 15 go from 12:30 to 3:30, and it really, each way we could get more kids in. And 1 week we went girls, and 1 week, we switched it up, but just as many kids as we could get. And so many people were like, I don't understand it. How are you having a summer camp? And I'm like, look, I said, I'm sure you could walk in here and find some fault in something, but ultimately we're doing exactly what they said. We're spaced out, we're doing this and that. So, and that really is the same thing. Like when we did the fall league, the basketball league and the invite basketball league down there, it was a pain in the butt, like emptying the gym after games and everything like that. But, ultimately those two leagues really funded the floor, and nobody else was giving the kids a platform to play at that point. Everywhere else was pretty much shut down. So, we had to take some chances, like we really did. But, being active during the pandemic has turned out to be very beneficial for us.
So I got to ask, though, pre-COVID, I guess it was um, not last summer, but summer before, there was a video floating around of a bunch of local pro guys playing down there. How
Yeah,
how did that?
that wasn't pre-COVID.
I couldn't remember if it. I feel like I thought
So
it was pre-COVID.
no, it was last June, July, and August. So a good friend of mine, Dion Lee, one of the best trainers in the Louisville area, he trains people nationwide. He had reached out to me about all the guys that were back, and a lot of the overseas guys got sent back, early,
Yeah,
and along with the college guys, some NBA guys, like, man, we need a place to run, and what kind of led to is, like, I realized there were some people that he didn't know, like a kid, Chris Coffey, played at Georgetown, All American, good chance he's going to be playing summer league here in August. Like I taught him at Myers. Kid named DeAndre Holt was an All-American at Cumberland. I coached him at Fern Creek. So really, I kind of brought my 4 or 5, and then he had all them guys like Russ Smith and Quentin Snyder, and even some older guys like Dante Smith that went
yeah,
from JUCO to pro back in the day from Oldham County. And really, like, the first time it was decent. Second time, and then it got to the point where it was like, no, this is invite only. Like, you might have been a hell of a college player or whatever, but I can't have you. Like, so really, it was a good 2 to 3 months. The time, one of the times that Russ was there, it was real intense, and he kind of took it to another level. And you could see the guys that were built to handle that level and those that weren't. But that's part of the reason when I got the floor done is is I put in the NBA 3-point line, because we would put tape down across to make it feel, because you don't want them guys shooting long twos to them and everything. So we added the NBA in the college line, just based on if something comes up again, and I like having those guys down there. Many of them still live in the area, have family in the area. So, but it was a good run for about 2 to 3 months.
yeah. I know my guy Tony Hicks was down there as well. Tony's one of my good friends.
Yep,
That
yep.
was
I mean,
how I mostly saw it. He shared stuff on his story. I was like, "Yo, where are y'all playing at Portland for real?"
yeah, yeah. And I mean, just some of the stuff that, like, the amount of guys that we do have overseas or did, is there's a ton. I mean, you could point to, there's only 3 guys or whatever the number is right now from Louisville that are in the league, but high level overseas players, you're talking a ton.
Now, is Delta your only occupation, or do you do something outside of that now?
So I was blessed enough, really, like, so the last year, to stop teaching and really come back. Like I said, I worked in the Catholic school system for part time, and I mean, now look, owning a nonprofit, it's always a gamble, because I also have other people I have to take care of in order to make this thing work. So I'm not going to say I haven't took a pay cut, but for all we do down there, it's almost impossible for me to still teach and get down there in time to have everything else together. So everything keeps going well. I feel like that it'll continue to be my only occupation.
So, are you guys looking for volunteers? And I mean, if so, I mean, plug every way that someone can get in touch with you and all that stuff, because I'd love for you to get as many volunteers as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even get my phone number. It's 502-609-1731. Whatever, like, people, I get people all the time like, can I volunteer? I don't know nothing about basketball. And I'm like, well, books and basketball, most of my volunteers are not anything to do. They're there to help the kids read, or like, we get a group that comes in, a church group, and comes in and helps us clean and things like that. So I've had people volunteer to grill for the kids. So really, anybody, man, we rely heavily on volunteers. Like, we rely heavily. And like I said, I think they'll love it, because our kids are respectful, we're organized, it's not chaos. And like, most of the time, like I said before, most of the time people do volunteer, they tend to come back. So definitely, please reach out to me, whether it's wanting to help on the basketball side, the reading side, or anything in between. We always need people.
So, my last question for you, man, what would you say your goals are for the Delta Foundation in the future? Is it to, outgrow that building, or is that something that you always want to stay? You always at least want to have that be your hub, or maybe make another one in it. Like you said, you grew up in the Newburgh area or lived in the Newburgh area as well, or taught at Newburgh. I mean, would you want to spread out to maybe another building there, and like maybe try to get one in all the neighborhoods that are maybe looked down upon in the city of Louisville, and try to shine a light in all of those?
Absolutely. I won't ever. They'll have to pull me out kicking and screaming to get me out of Portland Christian. That's the home base now, and I don't get me out of Delta, like,
Yeah.
'cause it's not Portland Christian anymore. But expansion definitely. What's crazy is I've had a lot of people in other counties, Lexington, Madison, Richmond area, ask about like bringing it down there and what that would take, and that's something that really. Once we get back rolling and I have some more time during the day, that I would like to maybe do baby steps and do it for a day or something, just so the incentive side of basketball to help these kids in other areas. But no question, I want to expand. Like I said, I mean, growing up, I always lived in the Fern Creek, Butyl, Hikes Point, Newburgh area. What was unique about that is pretty much everybody, even though those are all different areas, pretty much everybody that lives in them goes to Fern Creek High School. So like I got, my heart and soul is there. So definitely I would like to expand to that area, even if it is, just coming in to someone else's facility and doing it like that. So, right now, it's just about getting enough manpower and being able to take care of my employees I got now. And but definitely expansion in the future. And then other than that, like I said, just making sure the people under me, continue to utilize Delta's resources of facility, of being a 501c3, to kind of use the benefits of that to do their own thing that they're passionate about.
Now, I don't want to end with without asking this. How many people do you have under you at Delta? How many people are permanent people that work with you?
So I have two part-time employees that are actually on payroll. And then I look, here's another thing that COVID provided a lot of resources. So like right now, I got two employees being paid for through the city to work this summer. I had two from JCPS. So I know these things are eventually going to dry up, but right now I'm kind of blessed to say I've been able to really take care of my two, and then have outside sources take care of everybody else. But the tough thing about that is you don't want them to go. You don't want to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, how can I find a way? But right now, I mean, it's just really everybody that's been with me for the most part, besides one, has been there from jump. Like they were there with me, when it started. So that's just huge. I mean, you don't find that loyalty much anymore. And I hate to be like this, but anytime sports is involved, that loyalty tends to turn into jealousy. And I take care of my people. So like that's big to me, that the majority of people have stayed, that they've rode with me.
For sure. Well, man, Wes, I appreciate you taking time out for me, man. I just listening and all that. It sounds like you're a busy guy.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me. And like I said, come down there and check it out for yourself sometime. That's what I always tell people is I can always tell you about it, but until you see it, and we're an open door, man, just come down anytime, check it out, meet the kids. But man, I appreciate you having me, and we're taking care of your old gym, man. We got it looking good down there.
Oh, it made me a little sad when I saw the floor being painted over, but when I saw what it looked like, I mean, I can't be sad. It looks so good in there.
Yeah, yes, sir. I appreciate that, man.
Well, again, I appreciate you taking time out for me, man. And we'll have to get you on here again before, like, you do another summer camp or something, to let you get off in here and pump that up.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.